It's so realistic that you cannot even recognize that you're talking to an AI. The industry actually lost 47% of all of the workers in just 2.5 years. A lot of us in 10, 15 years, we have to find new jobs that would not be replaced by AI. Had to fire friends. The hardest things I've ever done. Have to be a tough person to take 1,000 no's and one yes.
Welcome back to Inspired by Success. I'm your host, Linda Vo. Imagine being told that getting a mortgage could soon be as easy as ordering takeout. At just 24 years old, today's guest is making that a reality. From contributing to NASA projects as an undergrad to building AI systems at Amazon, this tech prodigy saw an opportunity to revolutionize the trillion-dollar mortgage industry. Now, his Silicon Valley startup helps banks close 90% faster, transforming what used to take weeks into just days. Born in West Africa and backed by some of the biggest names in tech, he's proof that great ideas know no boundaries. His company, Addy AI, has already saved top lenders hundreds of hours in loan processing and earned a spot in the prestigious Silicon Valley Leadership Group. So without further ado, please welcome to the show, Michael Vandy.
Thank you so much, Linda. Excited to be here.
Me too. Tell me about your journey. You went from writing code in West Africa to now revolutionizing mortgages in Silicon Valley at just 24. So, I am so inspired by your story, but take me back to where it all began and how you became the man you are today.
I attribute most of it to my mom. I grew up in a single parent household with a single mom. My mom was a high school teacher. So from a very early age, she instituted on me the value of education. If you've ever grown up in a household with teachers, they want their kids to be super educated, but not only super educated, but follow a very rigid syllabus. So my mom would have me go to school in the morning, and then in the evening, I'd have tutors that come to the house and then teach me. But it wasn't really after school tutoring. I considered it sort of going to two schools because it was a separate curriculum. I was taking curriculums from the UK, the GCSEs, which I think you might have in Australia, I'm not sure. And then I was also taking classes for the SATs, which is the US exam. I distinctly remember sometimes my mom would drive me to the home of the tutor at night just so I could get tutored. And then she would park in the parking lot. And then I'd come in the parking lot at 2 a.m. and then knock on the window and she'd be dozing off to sleep. And then she'll just drive me back 10 miles home. Yeah, so I think most of it is attributed to my mom. She was just really supportive. And I've seen someone who's just selfless supporting someone to achieve what they couldn't achieve. And then at 14, I stumbled upon the internet, learned how to code. I got a laptop as a present when I was 7 years old, but I didn't start coding until I was 14. Fell in love with coding because I was able to build stuff from scratch. And I just started building a whole lot of projects, applied to school in the US, got in. And then the US just has a natural nurturing environment for people with abilities to build. And now we're here.
Incredible story. Is your mom still over there or is she in the US now as well?
She's over there. She comes to visit me every now and then.
Wow. And now you just launched a company, especially with AI being so hot. You're in the best moment of the AI space as well. So what's been your biggest wow moment since launching that company, disrupting mortgages at just 24 years old?
I would say my biggest wow moment, I'll give you two examples, one for the tech and then one for my professional journey. So for the tech, my biggest wow moment was when we built this AI voice agent that would look at a loan application holistically as it comes in, determines the documents that are missing, and then gives the borrower a call asking them to submit that document with no human involvement. And it's so realistic that you cannot even recognize that you're talking to an AI because you clone the voice of an actual loan officer that they know. That was super massive. And this is a month or two ago that we built the first version of it. That's by far my biggest wow moment.
Wow. Yeah, some people like things that we can do and embrace the technology. It's just incredible. Also, there's a flip side as well, but I just see so much opportunities. And in terms of starting a company at such a young age, surely you've had a lot of challenges to come along with it as well. Like, what's that been like? How have you overcome
Yeah.
it? You know, you're in the startup world, a lot of hustle as well. Tell
Yeah.
me about some of the challenges and how you've had to overcome these.
Well, so one of the challenges was just being young and considered inexperienced, and especially the fields that we're disrupting. But that I think gives us the outside perspective because we've come up with like out of the box thinking. We're not building like a point of sale. A lot of people have point of sale systems. In the earliest stages, it was like really hard to convince people that you know your stuff. Like when you're talking to
Mm.
people, and that sort of goes away once you close one or two big clients. And eventually we were able to like get credibility in the industry. But I remember distinctly in some of like the earlier conversations I would have with investors and like, hey, I want to build this mortgage tech company. I started off building something totally different and I pivoted to this. And then they would ask, well, what's your experience with mortgage lending? And I'm like, I've never bought a house.
Mm.
Have you ever worked in financial services? Like, no, I have never done that. But I know a lot about AI, and it's not rocket science to see that there's an industry where it could be applied to. And I can hire people with mortgage lending IQ, and those people would be the best in the business. And then we can build out the company. I think the primary job of a CEO is to just build the team of people that build the product. So I was able to like overcome that, but it was very hard in the beginning.
I can just imagine. That's very interesting. No experience in, you know, the mortgage, but you came to disrupt it. And sometimes it needs a breath of fresh air to be able to disrupt an industry. Like I came into the vending machine space and over less than a year, I'm making so much more than people that have been in the industry for 20 years and they can't believe it when I show my stats. And it's like,
Yeah.
I didn't know nothing about it, but I just came into it. I learned and then I just created better systems and just maximize things. So what you've done is incredible. But the thing is, it's also a great opportunity in AI space, by the way, because it's early days. But for the listeners who aren't tech experts, can you explain how AI makes mortgage processing a lot faster? I mean, you mentioned that you got the AI avatar that talks and calls people. That's amazing. Like, can you
Yeah.
explain what else it does as well?
Yep. So the Australian economy is actually vastly built on mortgage-backed securities. It's one of the pillars of the Australian economy, which I've looked into a little bit. So what happens is when someone submits a loan application to a credit advisor or to an independent mortgage bank, these are called special situation lenders if you don't submit to. There is never a time when you submit all of the documents at a go and then it's accepted and it's like, hey, here is your money, go get a house, like everything's okay. You
Mm.
submit these documents and then an actual human called a loan processor would have to review those documents, look at your credit history, look at your income, look at your background searches, know that you're credit worthy, and then pass that on to, let's say, a loan officer who would then go through like the later due diligence processes. And that process takes like 30 to 45 days, even longer, depending on like how fast you can communicate with the credit advisor. And it's a terrible experience for borrowers because you think the people who are doing it don't know what they're doing because they say, oh, hey, submit 2 years of bank statements. And then someone looks at it and finds some anomaly that they want to cross check like 3 years back. And they say, oh, send the other 3 years of bank statements. So what we do in that process is we put AI in the middle of that process to review all of the documents, reviewing bank statements, reviewing in the US what we call W-2s and W-9s. These are income statements, pay stubs, and then transferring those insights over to the loan officer. And then the loan officer can then make a final decision. And because we put AI early in the process, we get to shorten the time from weeks to days.
That's incredible. Where did you find the idea to tap and use AI technology into this space? I've heard AI technology into the medical space. I've interviewed someone there. There's so many different applications. But what was that process for you to find that? Just for the listeners out there who are trying to find a usage idea that they can, you know, save time, and for other entrepreneurs that are trying to create something great. What was that process that you had to go through? And Did you do research using AI? Because I use AI as a tool. I love it. It's a game changer. But to get into that particular industry without any prior knowledge, obviously you would have had the research. AI can help you do the research, but
Yeah.
what made you tap into this specific niche?
Yep. So unfortunately, I didn't use AI to do the research.
You
It
didn't?
would, I did not. It would have
Okay.
been a lot shorter if I did. But what I did was I built a tool to train AI models, and then a large bank reached out, was like, "Can you train a model for our credit advisors to do X?" X was totally different from loan origination. What they wanted to do was to extract loan opportunities from the emails that they received. So I built set up like this email tool. So instead of just providing that product for them, I did some user interviews, like hundreds of user interviews with them and other companies as well. I was like, what else can I provide for you? And then that's when they told me about all this bottleneck that they're having with loan origination. And then I was like, hey, well, maybe I could build this. So I validated the idea with them. I worked with them on that for like 3 months, my team and I.
Mm.
And then even after the 3 months, I wasn't really set on that. So I hired a designer to build a landing page. So it just so happens that this designer has sort of like a Twitter presence. So the designer posted the landing page on Twitter, and then other independent mortgage bankers saw it and then reached out via that landing page post. And then we slowly started getting these demos, booking these demos, getting customers, and then did a whole lot of research into, well, is this a viable idea before actually settling on this idea?
Wow, that's great that you listened to the feedback of what the customers needed. You're solving a bottleneck problem. So, for the listeners out there, if you can find a solution to a problem and then you leverage AI and technology, but then, not be set on a product and just create an MVP, minimum viable product, and then from there, just keep evolving from there, improving the product. And that's where you are today. And do
Yeah.
you constantly evolving and taking customer feedback continuously or?
The first version of the product is never going to be the final version of the product. Like you always have to be evolving. And
Mm.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs should know this because like you think of an idea and you feel like this idea is its final form. But I've never seen a product that started out as product X and then exited as product X. There's a whole lot of evolution that goes on in that process. And part of evolution is learning from customers. And that's what we try to do a lot.
I like that. Now, in terms of the flip side, AI replacing jobs, what do you think the future outlook is like for loan officers with the tech like yours that is coming out now? I mean, we
Yeah.
know that it's bound to happen, and just like internet age as well, it's just rapidly evolving. There's so much more opportunities. But do you think loan officers should use the technology to enhance their current profession, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So there are a lot of thoughts on the internet about people thinking, oh, AI is going to replace jobs. And I think the common thesis is, oh, no, AI is going to be the co-pilot for humans. It's going to help us like work together. And I think that's like, it's a very easy thing to just think about. I think you have to think about it more deeply than that.
Mm.
So think about it from like my perspective of a software engineer. That's my background. About 20% of the code that I write is written by AI. Very soon it's going to be a lot more. So even my job is at risk of getting replaced. And I have to be realistic and say, well, hey, this is going to happen eventually. What are some of the new jobs that we can create? Or what are some of the industries that we would need to transition humans to? And the way we're looking at it is there are specific jobs, like the job of a loan processor, that we think could be greatly enhanced by just using AI in the loop. So, in the last 2 years, 2 to 3 years, the US had very high interest rates. So, mortgage lending is commission based. So, a lot of the loan officers and loan processors left the industry. So, the industry actually lost 47% of all of the workers in the
Wow.
loan origination space in just 2.5 years. So part of what we're doing is actually filling a gap between the X over two loan officers that were not in the industry. And then eventually those people might come back. But when those people come back, the job is going to look a lot different than what it looks like now. So I think we have to embrace the reality that AI is actually not going to be a co pilot for humans. a lot of us in 10, 15 years, we have to find new jobs. We have to find new purposes that would not be replaced by AI. I like
Mm,
gardening. I think, at some point I would be a farmer somewhere. I don't think AI would be doing that anytime soon,
mm.
but I think my job is very at risk of being replaced by AI, and I think a whole lot of jobs will be too.
Yeah, I totally agree in that. I always think about that too, and constantly thinking about the world ahead and being a few steps ahead because of AI as well. And then you've just got to think about what you're passionate about and what AI can't do. For me
Yeah,
personally, I love like meditation that AI can't do. So we can always create events around community, like because there's going to be a need for community as well. So sometimes I get into that spot of thinking ahead and what you can do and what you're passionate about. But I'm
exactly.
sure you mentioned what you created. I think you still need to be able to come up with these ideas and have a leader, the leadership skills to be able to do that because AI can't do that yet.
I think someone should make a website called whataican'tdo.com and just
Oh,
list all of the things AI can't do.
opportunities, eh?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, that would be brainstorm with AI.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's a great idea, actually. I like the problem solving solutions that you have there. Now, you mentioned, your background's a software engineer. So I'm fascinated to know, like, how has it worked out for you in terms of your leadership style? Because I've worked in ad tech before and there's been engineers there. They're in the back end. You know what I mean? You need a different type of skill sets to be able to think bigger and to build bigger. But not just that, there's being an entrepreneur, you need to lead a team and then you're putting out multiple fires, not just the engineering one. So
Yeah.
what's that experience been like for you and how do you do it? Do you rely on other people and just hire the people building skills, sales team, or do you try to do it yourself and just evolve and learn these skills?
That's an excellent question. It's a totally different skill building a product versus marketing a product and then selling a product and bringing a product to market. When I first started, I was lucky enough to build the first version of the company while I was still just finishing up on my master's. So I had some sort of like a buffer period to learn.
Mm,
And I got these advisors who have built companies before. So I wanted to learn sales. So I got a sales mentor and a sales advisor. And I think the fact that I wasn't in a hurry to build a company, I had like 6 months before actually going full time. It just gave me this time to put together not only like a company building plan, but a professional building plan. And in those 6 months, I actually churned through, I think, like two co founders now, just because getting skill sets that you think are needed, but actually are not skill sets that you think that are needed in the company.
mm,
And then you just have to evolve with that over time. One of the things I think engineers, and I was one of them, struggle with is thinking sales and marketing is easy and just thinking like engineering is like the hardest thing. Oh, how hard can it be? But marketing actually has been one of the hardest things for me, as I don't like putting stuff out there every day and then you feel like you're annoying people. So
yeah.
in the earlier stages, I was just like super focused on building. Now I spend like 80, 90% of my time just on sales marketing. That's why I'm doing this podcast. But before I was just be doing all of the engineering. And what I found is once I pulled away from engineering, the business started moving a lot quicker. And then I
Mm,
just have to unlearn that I won't have to be on top of every single engineering decision, but I just have to pull away and have these advisors. And I can't tell you like how many times it felt like a broken record. My advisors would say every meeting, every 2 weeks, they'd be like, "Hey, Michael, how much of your time are you spending on engineering?" And I'd be like, "I'm spending 80%." And then the next meeting, it's like 70%. And it took like 18 months for it to be in the place where it is right now. But I think other people should learn that. And it just happens over time.
it's good. That's a great skill set. Now that you've got that knowledge of the engineering side, the technical knowledge, but you're also building your sales and marketing and growth skill set. It's a great thing to have both of them. Do you know what I mean? Like lucky to have, So now,
Yeah.
not many people in that growth space, in the marketing space, would be
Yeah.
interested in the tech space. But if you've got that in your pocket as well, and then you're working on the growth, it's just going to be phenomenal. And then you'll understand all the intricacies and all the bugs and all the fixes. You'll understand it
Yeah.
when anything bad happens and you're across it. But it's just a matter of managing your time wisely so that you focus on growth, I suppose.
Right. I'm still working on it. I still haven't
Mm.
like fully let go of engineering. Like I said, it's like 90% right now, but I
Mm.
think the happy path would just be me not having to do a whole lot with the engineering, just focus
Yeah,
exclusively on sales and marketing. And once I find a nice executive as someone that can like complement my skills, then we'll see how we go from there.
that's interesting. I'm going to ask about what the future plans are afterwards, but I'm just curious to know your experiences at NASA and Amazon. Tell me about that and how's that influenced the way you've built Addy AI?
Right. I'll start with the NASA experience. So the NASA experience was something called NASA Suits. So it's Spacesuit User Interface Technologies for Students. It's an acronym. So what that program was is students from college, they apply to NASA to work with NASA engineers on spacesuit informatics displays. It's a super selective process, but if you have a good advisor, you can get in. So I was in that project for 2 years, got to be one of the teams that eventually were the finalists to present our prototypes at Johnson Space Center in Houston. So I think for that project in particular, it was mostly about not only working in a team, but working on something that you think that is like hard to reach, but then you're only one decision away from achieving that. So I remember when our advisor just like applied for the program, we're like, well, we don't think we can get in because there's like Harvard, there's like all these schools. And then I was going to University of Baltimore, like not a big name school. And then we eventually just got in. And we're like, oh my God, now we have to build the thing. You're like, well, what we can do is like slowly start learning. And then we're eventually able to build a thing. But one of the things I think I learned from that project is like many things in life is just like one decision away from changing your life. So
Mm.
that project went really, really well. And then I ended up writing like 3 research papers that peer reviewed and published about it. Like got invited to journals and stuff to like present that research paper. So that was fine. And once I graduated, I got some job offers once I graduated on grad. I chose Amazon because it was a big enough company that I felt like I would have internal mobility. And I just wanted to work on like cloud infrastructure. So I joined like the auto scaling team at Amazon. What I think I learned at Amazon was mostly building things at scale. So in the
Mm.
NASA Suits projects, like we're building sort of like this extended reality component for astronauts, but it was only going to be used by one astronaut. And you can have like the most clunky software and it would still work. But when I got to Amazon, you're building things for like billions of people. And there is no room for error because if something is down a minute, the company loses like millions. So
Oh.
I was in charge of this auto scaling for something called EC2 instances. And anyway, it doesn't really matter, but what happens is on Black Friday, there's a surge of traffic. So you want to
Yeah.
make sure that you scale up your systems as a surge comes in. So working on those systems. And I learned a whole lot about scalability. I learned a whole lot about bureaucracy at Amazon. And I realized that I'm just listing all the technical things that I've
Yeah.
learned.
No, but it's good. You've applied those skills now to what you're
Yeah.
doing. And that's
Yeah.
obviously it's helped. I think that experience has also helped. Let's talk about some AI and privacy concerns. How does Addy AI ensure data security? Because nowadays there's so many things that people are concerned about privacy and security, especially with AI. But can you talk about that a little bit for us?
Yeah, a great topic because I recently just hired someone who was a founder of a security company to join
Okay.
our team. So it's very much top of mind for us. It's a hot topic because on one end, you want to move fast. You want to be like an accelerationist. On the other end, there is a responsibility that you have as a human to respect privacy and security. So there's this bill in California that the governor just vetoed. It was going to impose a lot of restrictions on AI companies, and it had its merits, but it was going to stifle some innovation. So the middle ground for privacy and security, this problem has been solved a long time ago. It's been solved with dialogue boxes. Just ask users what they want, just continuously ask them, and always make sure that every single user has their own instance. For us, it's very easy because we're enterprise software. So we can store enterprise data in different enterprise pockets that are like air gapped. That way, the data doesn't get mixed. And with security, I think one of the things that we do is doing a whole lot of evaluations. So, evaluating the responses of the model before putting things out there. That's why we're not going like the consumer direct model. We're not selling this software to consumers. We're selling it to enterprises, to like people who work in the back office.
Mm.
They have more of a tolerance to like check the results, right? And our AI is not making any final decisions. We're helping loan officers make the final decisions. With that being said, eventually we will get to the point where AI will make the final decisions. But as we develop the technology slowly, we will solve this problem. But it's evaluations, it's hiring the right people, and it's asking the user every time, being transparent, like the data that you're showing them. And the fourth thing is making sure that every single enterprise customer, like the data is being stored in like a separate enterprise data storage bucket.
Oh, that's good to know. With AI rapidly advancing and everybody, like there's lots of companies jumping into the space, how do you stay innovative and ahead of the curve in such a fast moving industry?
I never wanted to build an AI company. This was never meant to be a company. I was literally live streaming on YouTube building an app, and then I posted on the internet and people started using it, and then eventually morphed into Addy AI. So when people say, "Oh, hey, everyone's jumping into AI, wanting to build an AI company," I was like, "Well, I never really wanted to build an AI company. I just stumbled upon one."
Mm.
And your question is like how you stay ahead of the competition, how you stay ahead of the curve. Things change a whole lot.
It's rapid.
What's even happening? What's the most recent advancement in AI? Well, we've seen these chain of thought reasoning models that when you ask them a question, they do some reasoning and then ask themselves, how should I solve this problem? And then go step by step process. Read a bunch of papers. So, this website archive that has a lot of academic papers. Being in the Bay Area, it's very easy because I have my own private office, but I got a membership at Community Workspace just for AI companies. So it's like a whole building, just
Wow.
AI companies. Like if you're not working on AI, you get rejected. I'm going to the dinner afterwards, there exactly after this podcast. So just like talking to other entrepreneurs about what they're building, because you get to hear things like a couple of weeks before they get to market and you know what's going on. It's just like surrounding yourself in the right communities and reading a bunch of papers. It's tough. It's tough staying ahead.
Wow. In terms of venture capital and getting funds as well, that a lot of people are pouring a lot of money into AI startups as well. What are your thoughts on that and any tips and advice for other entrepreneurs that are looking to try and get some VC capital into their startup, especially if it's an AI startup?
Yeah. If you look at the data of how much funding is going into startups, is overwhelmingly AI, but other industries as well. Like if you look at cumulative startup investments, there's a lot more investment in like 2021, 2022 than it is right now. So we still have a lot of ways to go to catch up, where maybe this is a healthy level that we're in. I think investors care about three things at most, and it's number one, traction. Number two, the team. People don't really care about product as much. And then the market, you have to be in like a good market. So for traction, a lot of people think traction means the number of customers that you have. Attraction can simply just mean maturity of how you think about the product. So when we first started, we were thinking of like so many different ideas until we did like user interviews. But you know you have something when you feel like you're thinking about the product differently, and then you know you're building something that people want. When you actually talk to a customer and they're like, "Hey, how do I pay for this?" That could be some form of traction. And you don't have to raise money for it, except you're probably building some sort of like rocket ship company. I think if you get the right team on board and then you start doing ideation and having like design partners, you have good traction, you're going to have easier time fundraising.
Mm.
And about the team, I have a unconventional thought of the team. A whole lot of people think you need co-founders. I think that is the case if you're really early, but I think if you know what you're doing and you have the money, you could just go hire the people who are best in that field and have like a unified voice of like an evangelist that the company follows. But my advice to an entrepreneur is find something that you're deeply passionate about, that you're the only one who knows so much about it that someone else doesn't know as much about it as you, or find a partner that knows about it as much as you do, or in a different area. Like Linda, you know about vending machines. Pretty sure if you want to build like a vending machine routing company, when you go in front of the investor, you're going to talk to them and then they're going to know that you know your stuff. So
Mm.
founder market fit, traction, and a good market.
Interesting. Where do you see the company in the next 5 years? Do you want to take it public? What is your vision? What are you excited about? Or is 5 years looking ahead too far?
No, it's good. It's a good timeline. I'm trying to think deeply about this problem. I think what we're doing could be applied to a whole bunch of credit applications. So not only mortgage loans, commercial real estate loans, credit card loans, auto loans.
Oh, wow.
And I'm excited for this tech to get to that point where it could be applied to so many different things. And I want to be there when it
Oh.
happens. I think getting acquired in a year or two would be too soon. I want to be there when the technology peaks.
Mm.
So my goal for this company is to see how it gets applied into different kinds of credit decision that could be 5, 10 years from now. I know that's like not economic reason. I think I should probably have an economic answer to this question, but I don't yet. I've only been working on it for a year, and it's okay. I
Too
don't
soon,
have
yeah.
an
Yeah.
economic answer to it.
Yeah. No, that's
And we will
understandable.
see.
But you're in such a great space with so much opportunity as well. Like you said, you've got so many applications that it could be used for eventually as well. But it's exciting. And I haven't read the book, but there's a book called Built to Sell. You mentioned getting acquired. Is that something that you want your vision to be? You're building it to be acquired eventually in the future, or are you planning to just keep it until it's at the peak, like you said, and just see where it goes? Because you're still young as well. You're only 24.
Right. See where it goes. I do have people reach out and like, hey, you've built great tech stuff. Let's collaborate. And like, yeah, sure. We'll see where it goes. I think like for some people, it makes sense thinking I am going to build to sell. And with everything in entrepreneurship, there's always a caveat. If you build something and you have a gold mine and then you reach a plateau and then, you're like, well, I should probably just sell. If you're growing like 10% a year, then, I should probably just sell. But when you're growing like 1,000%, you're like, well, I really want to write this and see where it goes, right?
Mhm.
So that's the point that we're at right now.
That's awesome. No, I've heard of people like after they sell because it's become their baby and they work so hard. And then it's like once they sell, all those dollars in the bank, like heaps of money in the bank because they were builders and they've built something. It's like letting go of their baby as well. But,
Oh,
you're still early days, so you don't have to worry about that. Can we talk about like work-life balance and, running a startup? I'm just curious. I know when I've worked in an ad company before, an ad tech company, it was a startup and it was amazing. It was work hard, play hard. Tell me about your schedule and what you do because you're still young. I'm guessing you don't have a family, but do you work super long hours? Do you find balance? Do you have a schedule or ritual that you need to have outside of work?
no schedules, no rituals. Are you familiar with the honey badger?
No. Tell me about it.
So the honey badger is just like an animal that's just super resilient. It just gets anything it wants to get. But the thing about it, it just like goes with the flow of whatever is happening. And there's this principle of autotelism that I try to live by.
Auto what, sorry?
Autotelism. And it's the state of flow that you get into. Let's say you're a surgeon and you're doing surgery and you just like get into a flow state where it's not like you're really thinking, but you've done it so much that you're just flowing through it. And I think entrepreneurship is a lot like that. With work-life balance, what I try to do is not have any strict schedules. Today I came into the office, 10 a.m. I woke up at like 9, and then I'm probably gonna stay in until 10, 11. And then tomorrow I might wake up at 6 a.m. and then leave at 5. So just like having this auto tell just going and just adapting to what is happening during that day, I think is a good strategy. A lot of people are like, well, you wake up at 5 and then you do a cold shower and then you cold
Yeah, cold plunge.
plunge.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, sure, maybe it might work, but I don't think I want to, restrict myself to something like that. So for work-life balance, just like say goodbye to work-life balance if you're going to start a company. It's unequivocally going to be the hardest thing that you ever do. So it shouldn't even come as a question. Wait, I have
Mm.
a sleeping bag in the office. Right.
You
So
can't achieve success without working
leave
extremely
here.
hard. Oh, wow.
And I would just, spend the night here if I need to. Work-life balance will come later, but just be autotelic and go with the flow and deal with things as they come.
No, I like that. And in terms of your leadership style, tell me a bit about your leadership style. Everybody, you seem like you're really easygoing and not a strict type boss, but what is your leadership style? What's worked for you? Because everybody's different. I've read about some founders, Elon Musk, for example, and Jeff Bezos, they like really
Yeah.
extreme lengths, and they push their workers as well. Tell me about your leadership style and what's worked for you.
Oh, it's changing this week now. It's going through a transition this exact week because we have a huge customer deployment coming up. And I feel like we've been a little more structured, but flexible in the point where we have a set of tasks and then we do 1 week sprints, assign the best person for the job, and people can like move around. And then we later test. But what happens is, sometimes things don't work. And then you're like, well, let's put all of the things that don't work and then let's reassign it. And you constantly find yourself in reassignment mode. Like you constantly find yourself in manager mode. And as a team grows, managing becomes a job and managing the management becomes a job because now I have to manage the Jira board. I have to manage all the things. So my leadership style in the last 9 months has been I have a set of tasks that I need to be done. I assign it to the best person. And then every day you give me status updates until the job is done at this particular time. If it's not done, we go back and do it. What I'm doing this week is I'm saying, hey, engineer A, you're responsible for our Salesforce integration. In 2 weeks, find out a way to integrate with Salesforce and just meet me at the Salesforce integration in 2 weeks. And I may not have as regular cadences with you, but in 2 weeks, I'm going to trust that you get that Salesforce integration done. And I'm just trying it out this week. I'm trying a little bit more autonomy. I think when people work in a startup, that's what they're looking for a bit more autonomy. I'm trying that now, but we'll see how it goes and see like the differences between the two. But it's definitely transitioning to like leading with more autonomy in the team.
Yeah, that would just free up a lot of your time as well and just trusting your team more. Interesting. Can you share like one of the biggest mistakes that you've made that's taught you an important business lesson? Because I know that with startups, it's also good to have failures so that we fail
Uh,
fast and learn. But what's
but
something like a big mistake that you wish that could have been done differently in the lesson you learned from it?
giving people titles very early on,
Oh,
titles that you don't like vet for. So when I first started the company, I hired like a couple, like one or two friends that were great engineers, like some of the best engineers I've ever met. And then you'd give them the title of CTO.
ooh.
And then you realize that being a great engineer doesn't necessarily mean you're a great CTO.
Yeah. How did you?
Yeah. Had to fire friends, the
Yeah.
hardest things I've ever done. It was hard. I think one of the things is when you hire people, like startup growth is like, it's incredibly nonlinear that if there are two people on the team, and then usually the first person is the CEO, the second person that you hire, they would expect by default to be CTO or to have like a leadership role. I have to come to think around that and say, well, when I'm hiring people, I set the expectations straight and say, hey, you're a full stack engineer. It's okay that we don't have like a traditional organizational hierarchy, like from CEO to full stack engineer. It's like no middle management. That's totally fine. One of the lessons I've learned is just not give people like titles early on. And then second lesson is just like maintaining relationships. I was really bad at keeping up and following up with people. So I would talk to someone who's incredibly successful and then it'll be fine. And then I would not reach out for like 3, 4, 5 months. And then something would come up. I'd want to reach out. And it's hard because you meet so many people and then you have to keep in touch with all of them, which is in itself a job. And you also have to build a company. Yeah, one of the ways I'm dealing with that is just making an update newsletter for all the people that I meet. When I meet you, I'm like, hey, do you mind if I add you to my newsletter? And every month I just send an update. I'm growing potatoes. XYZ thing is happening in the company.
I
And it's
like
just like
that.
a way to mass update people. And I have like a
Scalability too.
exactly, exactly.
Interesting. Have you had any books or mentors that have really made a huge impact in your growth, in your entrepreneurial journey?
100 Days of Rejection by
Hmm.
Xie Zhang is a good book. I recently started reading something about what makes things catch on. It's a marketing book. Then 100 Days of Rejection was super transformative for me, just learning how to deal with rejections. You get so many no's that have to be a tough person to take 1,000 no's and one yes.
I like that. Building resilience as well. Incredible and inspiring. Is there anything like a message that you'd like to leave our audience with?
Life is nonlinear, and younger people, they have this idea of what they want to accomplish by a set time. And it's almost always a very linear plan. Go to school, graduate, get a six-figure job, do this, do that. And I think for the listeners, embracing nonlinearity, I don't know if that's even a word, could be a good thing. And then sometimes you can have exponential growth, exponential success, and things that you do inspired by success. It's the name of the pod. So
Mhm.
if you grow exponentially, I think you have to be comfortable with it, but also knowing that life is really nonlinear and things change over time. Adapting to change is something that I think a whole lot of people need to learn. So what I think I would love to let the audience know.
Yeah, no, I totally understand because building a startup, especially in this disruptive AI market, there's just going to be so much huge ebbs and flows of learning and growth. It's obviously going to be rewarding for you as well, but there's just going to be many moments that you have a lot of challenges. But overall, in the end, that's what's going to fulfill you and the risk and the probabilities. There's just so many there. But then at the end of it, you're going to be so proud that you built this process and you built this amazing company and the things that you've achieved. And it's all about growth as well. So I'm keen to keep watching your journey and seeing how far you take this and how big you can build it. So, I'll be watching
Linda.
closely for your
Thank you.
success as well.
Thank you.
This has been a really interesting conversation. So I really appreciate time. I love the way that you're so calm about it as a leader, a young leader. You're so calm and you're self aware. And I think that those are the skills you definitely need to take with you when you're building something amazing. So,
Yeah.
congratulations for that. And I really appreciate your time as well. For those that want to follow you and connect with you, where can they find you?
I'm very active on LinkedIn. If you search Michael Vandy, I'm very likely the first link to pop up if you want to get on a call with me. If you book demo of our product on our website, addy.so, I am definitely going to be the person in that call. So if that's one way to just like get me on a call immediately, if you don't want to do all the scheduling on LinkedIn, just book a demo.
Nice. Guys, if you're watching on YouTube, please leave me a comment. Let me know your thoughts. Are you building anything? What inspired you? And if you're listening, oh, yeah, first of all, with the YouTube thing, I've checked the stats and a lot of you guys are watching and not subscribed. So please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. And also, if you're listening on the podcast, please share this with someone and hit that follow button as well. Thank you so much for your time, Michael. It's been a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you, Linda.